So today we're going to be testing out a brand new power station from Oupes, and this is the biggest power station that I've had the opportunity to test. This is a 120 240 volt power station. It has a max output of 6,000 watts of continuous pure sine wave output, and then it has a 4.6 kilowatt hour battery. Now this power station, being a 120 240 volt, it makes probably the primary use for something like this would be for like home backup during a power outage. It would be a good choice to be able to plug into a generator inlet, either a 30 amp or a 50 amp inlet. Then you can backfeed your house in a power outage, and then you have the choice to be able to power up anything in your house. Now, keep in mind, being a power station, you have limited amount of stored energy in here. You probably wouldn't want to power everything in your house, but it would give you that capability to be able to run whatever you need. And another good choice would be somebody who has an RV or a camper. You want to go camping somewhere where you don't have power, you'd be able to take this with you and power up your RV. So we're going to go over all the specs and features of the power station. We're going to test this out and see how well it runs. But since this is a brand new power station, they have released it out on sale, and I think it's on sale for like the next 28 days or so till around December 23rd or 4th, and this is on sale for $1,700. Now I know that probably sounds expensive. When somebody hears that price tag, that's expensive, but when you compare that to the other Black Friday sales that are out there, a lot of the other 240 volt power stations are going to cost you more than this one. So I got on the internet and I checked out some of the Black Friday sales for other power stations the same size, and like on Anker's website, the F3800, I think it was on sale for $2,000, same 6,000 watt output, but it has a smaller battery, and they want $300 more than this one. And on EcoFlow's website, they have the Delta Pro 3. I think they want over $2,100 for it, so $400 more than this one. It only has 4,000 watt output and only like a 4.1 kilowatt hour battery. So smaller battery, smaller output, and $400 more. And then on Jackery's website, they have the Jackery 5000. Now it's actually slightly bigger than this. It has a 7,200 watt output. It has a 5 kilowatt hour battery, but they want $2,800 for it. It's $1,100 more than this power station. So out of all the 240 volt power stations out there during all these Black Friday sales, this one seems to be the best deal right now. So if you're shopping around this season for a 240 volt power station, you might stick around and see how this one performs, because it's definitely got a good price on it. So as we look at the front of the power station, the main power button is right here. And then on this side, you have an IoT button. That's how you activate your Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. You do have a regular 12 volt socket right here. And then you have a couple USB ports and a USB-C port as well. And then right here, this is what I find interesting. This is a 12 volt socket or 12 volt connection, but it's actually can be 12 volts at 30 amps or 24 volts at 20 amps. And all you do is move this selector switch on whether this is 12 volts or 24 volts DC. So as we look at the right-hand side, you've got all of your AC outlets. So at the top, we've got 4 120 volt, 20 amp outlets. And then we have a 30 amp 120 volt outlet. This is used on a lot of RVs and campers. And then we have 3 240 volt outlets. We've got a 30 amp, a 50 amp, and a 20 amp. And we'll look at the other side. So on the left and right hand side, these are your battery expansion ports. And then here in the middle, you have where you can charge it back up on AC power. It's your AC power cord. And then you have a DC charging. So this is for your like solar panel connection right here. So these expansion battery ports can hook up to 4 expansion batteries on each port. So that's a total of 8 expansion batteries total that you can hook up to this for a max of 41 kilowatt hours of storage. So I've had this power station for almost a week now. I've got a chance to play around with it and test it, so I think I've got a good understanding on how it works. Now, one thing I noticed is when you plug it into the wall, of course it's going to charge the battery back up, but it automatically goes into what they call their emergency power supply mode. And in that mode, only these 3 outlets are working. 2 20 amp outlets and a 30 amp outlet. And it will pass the power through to those outlets, and as soon as there's a power outage, power flicker, it will automatically transfer and keep those devices that are plugged in powered up. And it'll transfer in 20 milliseconds or less. Those devices, you probably won't even notice a flicker or anything. It'll almost seem seamless. Now, the downside of having that emergency power supply mode turned on is that none of the 240 volt outlets are on. These are all turned off. Even these two 120 volt outlets are turned off as well. So you can't power any 240 volt devices while the AC charging cable is plugged in. Now, as soon as you unplug it, about 3 to 5 seconds later, all the 240 volt outlets will turn on. These other two 120 volt outlets, they all turn on. And it's just automatic. You don't have to switch anything. Anytime the charging cable is disconnected, all of the outlets are active. And as soon as you plug it in, the 240 volts turn off. It's just something you got to keep in mind. You can't charge the unit and output 240 volts at the same time. So to turn on the AC outlets, you just turn on the AC power button right there. It turns blue, and then now our outlets are active. And if we look at the front display, it will show how many watts of output, but it also shows the voltage. I find this interesting. It shows 120 volts and 240 volts at 60 hertz. So we'll go ahead and we'll test that out. And my meter shows 119.8, so about 120 volts. There you go, 119.8, and it's showing 120 volts. So it looks pretty accurate there. Test 240 volts, 239.8. All right, I've got 239.8, and the power station says 241. So they're within a volt, 1.2 volts of each other. I'm gonna go ahead and plug in the charging cable. And when I do, you can see the charging values start to show up. And since it's passing through voltage, the voltage actually changed. Now it's showing 124 volts. And you can see the 240 volt actually went away because it turned off those outlets. So I'm gonna go ahead and unplug the charging cable again. That way we got the 240 volts. Now, if you had a generator interlock and you wanted to use this to power up your house, you would have to plug in your generator cord. Take the other end of your generator cord, plug it into the 240 volt outlet, and then you would switch your interlock. So you'd turn off your main breaker, and then that would allow you to turn on your generator breaker. So now this power panel, if this was the one in your house, it would be powered up by this power station. But in this instance, this is just a test panel, and it's going to allow me to plug in a bunch of different devices and test this out. So this power station will output 6,000 watts of pure sine wave, but it can get up to 7,200 watts with X boost. So it might not be a perfect sine wave, but you'll see this thing can output over 7,200 watts. All right, first thing I got is a 4,800 watt heater. Turn that on. You can see we got about 4,800 watts. All right, I got a couple heat guns hooked up, and these are adjustable, so I can adjust how much power they're using. About 5,500 watts, 5,600 watts, 6,200 watts. We're over 6,000 now. 6,300 watts. Still above 6,000 watts for over a minute now, I think. Over 6,000 watts. Has been for a few minutes now. Still got 119 volts. The voltage is not dipping. Staying steady. This has been going now for over 5 minutes. Over 6,000 watts. I think we should turn these up a little bit more and just find out where it overloads at. It's going to trip out somewhere in here. 6,500 watts. 6,800, 6,900. It's doing good. Still going. 7,000 watts. Still going. It's over 7,200 watts. Oh my goodness. We got to get close. 7,200. There, finally turned off. No, wait a minute, that was just the screen. It's still going. That was just the screensaver. 7,200 watts, 7,300 watts. I'm about to max these things out. There, we tripped. Not sure what the highest that read at, but it's got to have been close to 7,400 watts. So now if we look at the screen, you got a little warning symbol here, and then that says overload. So to clear the overload, you hit the AC button one time, the overload goes away, and then you can turn it back on, and it should kick on the output. Takes a few seconds. There she goes. So that there was a purely resistive load, which is a great way to test continuous output. And yeah, this thing was running right up there, 7,400 watts, and this thing just kept on trucking. It was up there for several seconds before it finally tripped out. And we were right at 7,000 watts, bouncing around 7,000, 6,900 watts for probably over a minute, and it just kept on going. But it's supposed to be 6,000 watts continuous. There is a X boost mode, which I haven't figured out how to turn that on, which is really weird. So I open up the app to see if there's a way you can turn the X boost on and off. I don't see it in the settings, so the power station must automatically switch into X boost mode once it gets above 6,000 watts. Now the Guardian 6000, it does a good job of powering all your everyday loads, but I have had a little bit of trouble trying to get it to power up maybe like an air compressor or a big motor. It just doesn't seem to want to start those things. So this here is a 1.5 horsepower air compressor, a little bit bigger than one of those pancake compressors. Now I've found that this is a very difficult load for a power station to start up. Most of the power stations I've tested cannot start up this compressor. I was hoping since this was a big enough power station, maybe it would do a better job. So now let's go ahead and try to power up the air compressor. Now you can see it just doesn't quite have the surge capability to get it to start. It's just a little bit too difficult of a load. I'll go ahead and I'll plug in the AC power cord so that power passes through, and now we'll try to start it. There you go. Starts up just fine with power passing through, but by itself it just has difficulty with this. Like I have had most power stations I've tested cannot start this air compressor. Now if you were using this for home backup, the hard thing to start would be your air conditioner. So I think that would be a fairly good test. My air conditioner in my house, I have installed what they call a soft start. And it lowers that surge capability. It makes it easier for solar powered equipment to be able to start it up. So that does give me a little bit of an advantage, but we can hook this up to the house, power it up, and see if this can start the air conditioner. Now, during a normal power outage, you probably wouldn't want to power your air conditioner because you would run out of power sooner. You'd probably want to do the more critical devices like your lights, your fridge, your freezer, stuff like that. Now this power station, it is very heavy. It's really meant for a 2-man lift, so you may not want to try to lift it yourself. Now one thing I will say is when it sits on the ground, it's actually on all 4 feet, and the wheels are actually not engaged. You can see I'm spinning them, but it does have where you can lift it up, and you got your suitcase handle, and then it engages those wheels, and you can move this around fairly easily. So if you need to lift this up, you definitely want 2 people, but most of the time you'll be able to roll it around and get it where you need it. So my generator connection, I've got a 50 amp cord, and if I would set that down, it's going to put a lot of stress on that plug, bending that cord. So I think I'm just going to run this on its side like this for the test. Now this power station can't output 50 amps of 240 volts. So the 30 amp connection would be the better choice for this setup. So I got the power station plugged into the generator inlet. I just got to switch the interlock in here and then it'll power up the house. So this breaker panel right here, it sends power over to the house. It's this 100 amp breaker, and you can see there's other breakers in here as well. We're powering a little bit more than just the house. So we'll go ahead and we'll flip off the main power, switch the interlock, and then now we're on this 50 amp breaker, which is the one that's connected to the generator inlet. So besides my house, these 4 freezers right here, and there's another deep freeze in my basement. So a total of 5 freezers plus the house, then maybe the garage door openers, maybe the lights in here. So there's several things being powered by that one power station right now. So right now, I know this is sideways, but we're running almost 3,000 watts of power. So we're in the house now, we got some lights on, ceiling fans are going, just kind of the normal stuff. No big appliances or anything like that. I waited till Rebecca was done doing laundry and cooking and stuff like that. So yeah, what was that, like 3,000 watts we're using right now, which seems a little bit high, but we're gonna go ahead, I'm gonna turn the air conditioner, the heat pump. I'm gonna try to see if I can get it to heat the house. We'll kick it on, we'll see if it trips. We're already using like half the power right now, so see what happens. There, heat kicked on. Oh, we blinked. The lights blinked, but the lights are still on. So, did it start? All right, the heat pump is running. Maybe you can hear it behind me, but definitely heat pump's running. That's funny, it looks a lot slower than it really is, but that's just the camera. It did definitely blink the lights. So it was able to start the air conditioner even though it was already under 50% load. I do have a soft start in there, that does help. But like I said, if you're running like a normal power outage, you probably wouldn't want to try to use those big loads because probably run out of power a lot quicker. That's funny, we're running less power now, we're only running 2,000 watts, that's weird. But 1.5 hours, I know it's sideways, 1.5 hours and it would run out of juice. We'll go ahead and turn the air conditioner back off and then we'll see what the comparison time is without it. Go ahead and turn that back off. So now we're running 1,400 watts and we should be out of power in 2.3 hours. It's kind of weird that when we first powered that up, it was about 3,000 watts. And I'd say due to the power blip, we had some stuff start back up or kick on, you know, maybe some of the freezers or something started back up. But it looks like 1,400 watts. That's probably a closer number to what our normal power use is. Well, I think that demonstrated that you can power up a house through a generator interlock with a power station like this. And you can power it up for a few hours. All depends on what you got powered up, how many lights you got running, how many freezers you got going. It's all gonna depend on how much wattage you're using, on how long it lasts. But I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna switch everything back to the way it was. So it's pretty hard to determine how long a power station like this would power somebody's house. Everybody's houses are different. Your loads are constantly turning on and off, freezers and fridges, lights are coming on and off. So your power usage is never constant. So the timer on here is just constantly changing with the wattage. So it's really hard to determine exactly how long something like this would work. But if you had a constant 1,000 watts of usage on a 4.6 hour battery, you should get somewhere close to 4.5 hours of power backup. If you were using 1,500 watts of constant use, you would get close to 3 hours of power, backup power. Now, if you want this power station to go a long time during a power outage, you really have to do load management. Best way to do that would be go to your breaker panel, turn all your breakers off, only turn on the ones you need. So if you want to turn on one for the kitchen, so you have your kitchen outlets, turn on one for a refrigerator, maybe turn on ones for the living room lights, maybe the bathroom lights, and just like leave it at that. Just very few loads, and then a power station like this should be able to go for possibly a day or so without having to be recharged. So like I said earlier, this is a brand new power station from Oupes. It's the Guardian 6000, and right now it has this really low introductory price. And if you compare it, even with all these Black Friday sales, you compare it to any of the other power stations roughly the same size, 240 volts, you will find this costs less. It is the most cost-effective option out there right now. So if you're looking for something for, you know, like a normal household loads, backup power solution for just like your everyday items, this could be a good solution for you. Now, the only problem I probably found with this power station is it just doesn't have the surge capability to really start those compressors. It wouldn't start the air compressor. You know, it did start my air conditioner in the house. It was already under a load, but I had a soft start on my air conditioner, and you could tell it flickered the lights. You could tell it wasn't perfect start. It did start it, it wasn't perfect. So it does have a little bit of trouble starting compressors like that. And that is very common. That's all power stations seem to have that problem. They have problems starting compressors. So just keep that in mind. When you go out and buy a power station, I don't care what power station it is, they just don't do well trying to start up those like air conditioners and compressors. That's just where they always fall short. And that seems to be the only issue that I've come up with on this one. And I always find that same problem with every power station I test. But for like your normal, everyday, refrigerators, freezers, microwaves, normal items in your house, this power station should power everything like that just fine. So if you're interested in this power station, I will leave a link down in the description below. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.